Hi, my name is. I'm going to be sharing my then and now, a critical analysis for ECS 401, winter semester 2024. So first, let's begin by winding back the clock. Let's take a look at some of my earliest memories of feedback and assessment from my own school experience. My early feedback was terrible. I remember lots and lots of tears. I spent most of kindergarten under things crying, and my first day of school was spent under a shoe rack. Who at the time had undiagnosed anxiety. I didn't do feedback well, and you could say something in the most gentle way, and I'd probably still cry. Every grade that I got was a reflection of my self-worth and value. If I got a question wrong, I was inherently bad. If I got it right, I was good, and it took until about grade 5 for me to stop crying every time I saw an X on my paper. I think I remember so many of these tests as forms of assessment because of the emotional ties that I had to those experiences. I know most of my teachers were assessing us in other ways, but I really didn't do any of those. So what worked? What was effective for me? I found that play and low pressure exploration were really big deals for young Sarah. I loved doing experiments and project-based learning, anything that didn't tie back to an X on a paper. And this really shaped how I saw my assessment. What I truly needed at the end of the day was for somebody to tell me that I was doing a good job. And that's still what I find. The feedback is what keeps me interested and wanting more, and I was fortunate to have teachers that did this for me. And I still have profs today that do this for me. And that positive reinforcement really meant a lot to me as a learner. For a long time, I held the pedagogical that testing is not good for students. Throughout exploring what it means to assess in today's classroom, both in perspectives on assessment and differentiated access, and deeper understandings of 21st century competencies, I'm better able to appreciate the ways in which assessment that I disliked can be applicable in the classroom today. In saying this, I also believe there are better ways of hiding a test in an activity or a project, or there are better ways to assess through project-based learning. But this is my ideal best practice, not something that I can speak to from classroom experience. So for now, these ideals become my best practice and grow as I become a young teacher. Through studying the areas within 21st century competencies and assessment practices today, I've come to the conclusion that assessment must be practiced, backed up, and thoroughly thought through to be truly effective. But it is also wildly situational, and each classroom needs are different, and the individual even more so. The assessment way to inform my practice and aid my students on their learning journey, but never as a detriment to the student as a whole, but rather to get them where they want to be. 21st century competencies and my group projects has deeply impacted my pedagogy as a future teacher. The question that I had nagging at the back of my head while reading into this paper was, how does it matter to me if my kids are competent in workplace things? Does it matter? I want to teach really little people. I want to teach kindergarten or grade 1. And I got through the intro and quickly noticed that I was wildly wrong. Shaped by competency-based education. I didn't know that in the first I genuinely had no idea what to do in the first competency-based class that I took, and the unknown of it all gave me so much more anxiety than a test ever would have. But once I fell into it, I genuinely fell in love with the idea that I could push myself to learn what felt important to me and what built my competency in that subject area without having to fear if I knew it was going to be on the test or not. And that was so enlightening and so important to me. And I hope to be able to provide this to my future students as we embark on learning together project as a together relational thing. I've also gained a lot of perspective on what it means to train our students to focus on becoming competent in many areas that life will require of them. Not only are there necessary skills, but those skills must be combined with knowledge and interpersonal abilities to do what needs to be done in their lives. This flows into so many areas of 21st century students' lives. And it is crucial to learn from a young age, as their success in the world is dependent on their competencies and their abilities to adapt in this. The other presenters on January 24th were practical applications of what assessment needs to look like in today's classroom. It is simply difficult to categorize into where this information is actively relevant. My solution is not to memorize these areas like a test, but rather to create space for them in my pedagogy. All that was shared from the other groups is a foundational part of creating personal best practice for being an educator today. My largest takeaways have been something that I've been ruminating on for quite some time. Classrooms are flexible spaces. I feel as though all these areas that I learned throughout these presentations are pointing back to becoming a flexible educator who allows students to explore their knowledge in flexible spaces. Things like how we differentiate, include all our students, and shift our methods are positive reflections on space that is both flexible and accessible to our students, meeting them where they're at. To understand and apply this information. The wonderful thing about learning from your peers is that the information sticks in your head like a piece of gum stuck to the bottom of your shoe. Not to say that my peers are gum or stuck to the bottom of my shoe in any way, but they are stuck into the back of my mind. The ideas about and their perspectives and key points from inclusive and culturally supportive practice for assessment are now something I'm going to carry with me. Names and examples to all the pedagogical ideas I've learned in the past 3.5 years, coming from people who are in the same program experiencing similar situations, and they are equipped to share the relevant information that is necessary for us to be best practicing teachers in the 21st century classroom. So in that, I hope that I haven't simply rambled, and